Breaking right now on Morning News Now, shattered. America's fragile ceasefire with Iran now over, according to President Trump. The stunning call overnight coming after both sides exchanged a fresh round of attacks targeting critical sites and ships in the Strait of Hormuz. But will negotiations continue? Also this morning, a high-stakes face-to-face overseas. President Trump expected to meet with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy within the hour amid stepped-up strikes from Russia and renewed calls to bring an end to a disastrous years-long war. But will pressure from Zelenskyy for more U.S. missile systems end up falling on deaf ears? The latest from NATO in a bit. Plus, city on edge, a towering high-rise right here in the heart of Manhattan, now stable, according to New York City officials, after these startling images of two of its support beams buckling. Schools, restaurants, and hotels near Grand Central Station forced to evacuate yesterday. So what went wrong? And are New Yorkers in danger of an impending collapse? And later in the hour, why a summer of savings at Walmart could soon end up costing consumers a lot more than they'd bargained for. We keep bringing you the summer sales all summer long.
Exactly. This though centers on those price tags on the shelves. We'll dig into that in a little bit. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your day with us. We begin this hour with some breaking news out of the Middle East. The ceasefire between Iran and the United States appears to have collapsed. Overnight, President Trump told reporters at the NATO summit in Turkey that the memorandum of understanding agreed to with Iran to end the war was, quote, over. That is after both countries traded a new round of attacks.
The CENTCOM released new footage of strikes carried out yesterday by the U.S. military. Dozens of targets in the Strait of Hormuz were hit, including Iranian port cities. Eyewitness footage verified by NBC News shows explosions over one of those cities. The U.S. has carried out strikes in response to what it said was an Iranian attack on commercial tankers in that Strait of Hormuz. Iran shot back by saying the U.S. violated the truce and launched drone and missile strikes on U.S. bases in the Gulf. The latest escalation in violence appears to be a tipping point for the president, who launched this tirade against Iran's leaders overnight.
I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars.
NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with more on all this. So, Raf, first of all, walk us through how this latest exchange of attacks unfolded. What was targeted? What kind of damage are we seeing?
Hey, guys. So U.S. Central Command says it carried out strikes on 85 targets in Iran overnight, most of them hugging the Iranian coast. They say that they targeted radar systems, anti-air systems, and they destroyed some 65 of these small speedboats used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps to harass ships in the Strait of Hormuz. They are calling it a powerful strike. Iran is saying it responded with 85 attacks of its own targeted against U.S. bases in both Bahrain and Kuwait. These are two of the Gulf countries that have been hit hardest by Iran over these months of fighting. Authorities in Iran are saying at least one person was killed in the American attacks. We haven't heard of any casualties so far in either Bahrain or Kuwait or any of the U.S. military bases there. Guys.
Ralph, we've seen these flare-ups before. Do we know what it was this time that happened that caused the president to say it's over now?
So, Savannah, this seems to be mounting frustration on the part of the president. The war did not lead to the emphatic American victory that he was hoping for. And now these peace negotiations are stopping and starting, and they are being punctuated by these Iranian attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz. You saw him speaking in pretty personal terms about the Iranian leaders, people who at different points he's described as smart people, people he can do business with. So it seems that the president is increasingly frustrated. In terms of whether this ceasefire is truly over, it isn't words we should be looking at, it is actions. You saw this wave of U.S. strikes, you saw these Iranian response strikes. The question now is, are both sides going to keep shooting, or are we heading into a period of quiet and potentially going back into talks? Guys.
I mean, Raf, have we heard anything from Iran about this yet? Do they think the truce is over?
Yeah, Joe, so I think it's important to note the Iranians at this point are not giving a definitive answer one way or another whether or not they think the ceasefire is over. They have accused the U.S. of major violations of the ceasefire, but that's something that we have heard from them before. It's worth noting these negotiations that have been going on in Switzerland were on pause anyway for the duration of this massive funeral that we've seen for the former Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They weren't due to resume until at least Friday of this week. So it isn't like we saw everybody get up from the table in Switzerland and walk away. They weren't negotiating, and I think the real test will be whether or not they go back to the table. Yes.
Raf, the U.S. has also revoked a waiver that allowed Iran to sell its oil on international markets. Between that and then just the fact that fighting could be back on, the Strait of Hormuz could continue to have these difficulties, how's that impacting oil prices this morning?
Yeah, so we are seeing oil prices up sharply. They were in the mid-70s last time I checked, up from about $70. So the markets are concerned about this. They are concerned especially that the president is saying the ceasefire may be over. We may be returning to full-scale fighting. It's worth saying prices are up, but they are nowhere near as high as they were at the peak of this. You might remember back in late April, prices were at $110 a barrel. Americans were feeling that at the pump. This is a much more modest rise, but markets will be very, very closely watching to see what happens in the coming hours and days. Guys.
All right. Raf Sanchez in Tel Aviv. Raf, thank you.
Well, for more out of the NATO summit, let's bring in NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, good morning. So many thought the Ukraine war would dominate the agenda at this meeting, but it looks like Iran could now take center stage with this news. What has been the reaction from NATO allies to the collapse of this truce? Do we know if they're supportive of the U.S. strikes?
Yes, Savannah, good morning. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte was very supportive, sitting alongside President Trump this morning. He praised the U.S. campaign in Iran in general and said the new strikes were absolutely necessary and a very strong response to the Iranian attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, telling President Trump, quote, "I'm with you on this." This new flare-up essentially boils down to a question of who controls the strait. Iran insists that vital shipping route falls within its territory. It wants commercial ships to only use routes that it's approved and to pay maritime service fees. President Trump has said the strait has to be open and free, and NATO allies have no interest in seeing fees imposed there. That is not the situation as it stood before the war began. So certainly they're on common ground there as far as the strait goes.
Alice, let's talk about the Ukraine war. We know President Trump's expected to meet with President Zelenskyy on the sidelines of the summit. Ukraine has been pushing for more Patriot missile defense systems from the U.S. Does it seem like America could supply those? What should we expect out of this?
Well, the problem is that those really expensive, really complicated, important Patriot missile defense systems, they are in short supply everywhere. So it's a question of getting them in order to give them to Ukraine. And there have been concerns that the Iran war has, in fact, stretched American resources, though the White House insists the military has what it needs. There are bipartisan members of Congress who are at the NATO summit. Mike Rounds, for instance, a Republican senator, he said he thinks that Ukraine deserves priority. It's a matter of life and death, though President Trump has not committed. He's repeatedly said it's something he knows Ukraine wants and something they'll be talking about.
All right, Alice, thank you so much. Some lawmakers say they've recently spoken to the senator who's been in the hospital for more than 3 weeks. What do we know at this point about his health from these conversations?
The biggest takeaway from these conversations is that Mitch McConnell is conscious and is talking, which doesn't sound like a huge revelation, but considering there's so much speculation about his health, whether he was on life support, whether he was brain dead, this is a pretty big development. Now, we still don't know his exact condition. We don't know his prognosis. We don't know his timeline for a return, but it does appear, at least based on these several readouts from people who said they've spoken to Mitch McConnell, that he is talking, that he is engaged, and that he's able to have lengthy and substantive conversations. Guys.
All right. Mel, thank you so much.
Well, now to an alarming incident right here in New York. Yesterday, officials said a 37-story high-rise in Manhattan was at risk of collapsing. Check this out. There's 2 structural support beams on the 21st floor of this building. They started buckling early on Tuesday morning. Well, overnight, officials did say the building is stable for now. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has the details.
Alarming images from inside a New York City high-rise at risk of partial collapse, with buckling beams and sinking floors. You can see how the building appears to have a slight lean.
We're getting reports from the construction that 2 columns buckled on the 21st floor.
Construction workers calling in concerns just before 8 a.m.
It's not supposed to happen. Columns are not supposed to bend like that.
The building, formerly home to Pfizer's global headquarters, is being converted to a 1,600-unit apartment complex as part of a pioneering project now at the center of what city officials are calling a dangerous situation.
Since arriving on scene, we have witnessed additional movement in one of the compromised columns.
150 fire and EMS personnel swarming the scene and evacuating 9 buildings near Grand Central Terminal, according to officials. Schools, hotels, restaurants cleared out. Even a local news station forced to move their broadcast outside. Fortunately, there have been no injuries reported.
What's going through your mind as you were evacuating the building?
Well, this is for real. I need to get out here really quick because I don't know if the neighbor building is collapsing or not.
There are no Department of Buildings records that indicate prior concern about the structure. The building's developer saying safety is our #1 priority, adding the affected area is a small section of one of the 2 buildings on this site as the race to stabilize this high-rise ramps up. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Well, let's dig deeper into this issue now with Dr. Abi Aguirre. He's a professor in the College of Engineering at Drexel University. Doctor, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So just walk us through first, what could cause the support beams of a building to start to buckle like that?
That's a good question. Support columns buckle either because there's an overload or the unbraced length, the length of the column, inadvertently increased. So those are some of the conditions. And the overload could come as a result of increased load from construction materials, or it could come from increased load from removal of bracing elements or load carrying elements that divert more loads to this particular column.
Doctor, we saw a number of nearby buildings evacuated as a precaution. I mean, realistically, how great is the threat to nearby buildings?
Buckling is not something that we expect our buildings to do, especially column buckling. If the building columns buckle and the building tilts and collapses, it could affect nearby buildings. So the first thing is stabilizing this building, making sure that those columns that buckle, the loads that they used to support, that those loads are taken care of through shoring, by shoring the floors above these columns.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what you're saying, but how do you stabilize the building? What can be done to address the danger of a collapse?
You have to shore the building all the way down. Those floors that are relying on these columns have to be shored up using scaffolding, something that looks like scaffolding all the way down to the ground, so that the building can be stabilized while the columns are replaced. Because when I look at those columns are already inelastically buckled, meaning that they will not come back to their original shape if you were to remove the load. So they have to be replaced.
Doctor, for those who live in high-rise buildings and might be concerned about their own safety after seeing something like this, what should they know about the construction of these buildings? Anything you can say to ease their fears?
Buildings typically are built well, built right, but they've got to be maintained, just like the human body. As we age, as buildings age, they need frequent checkup, and that has to be done, maintenance and frequently, so that if anything goes wrong, like as buildings age, for example, there could be corrosion taking place without people knowing, because the structural elements, the skeleton of the building is covered with architectural features. So we need to maintain our buildings. We need to have periodic checkup of our buildings. Buildings don't last forever if you don't maintain them.
Dr. Abi Agayeri, thank you for your time.
My very pleasure.
More neighborhoods are cleaning up this morning after another round of dangerous storms caused flooding and damaging winds. Along the East Coast, the storms dumped up to 8 inches of rain in a short period of time. That flooded streets, stranding drivers in New York and New Jersey. Powerful winds snapped power lines, knocking out power to thousands of homes in the region. Crews are working around the clock, but it might take several days to get the power restored to some spots. In Tennessee, a lightning strike sparked a fire at an apartment complex in Chattanooga. Dozens of homes were destroyed there. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the latest on the ongoing weather chaos.
Millions across the Northeast cleaning up after a potent 1-2 punch of severe weather systems slammed the region. New video showing the power of those winds. Look at this. A trampoline sent sailing through the air outside Baltimore. The systems toppling trees and knocking out power to thousands. Outside New York City, some families in the dark.
They said next week, but hopefully we'll get it in the next few days.
And this dramatic rescue effort in Long Branch. Home security video capturing neighbors rushing to a submerged vehicle, checking to make sure no one was trapped inside. In the upper Midwest, severe storms ripping off roofs and collapsing structures in western Minnesota. Multiple tornado reports in the area. And in the South, fire officials in Chattanooga, Tennessee, confirming a lightning strike sparking this fire at an apartment complex, destroying more than 40 units Sunday. Thankfully, no one was hurt. While in the West, illegal fireworks being blamed for igniting this fire southwest of Portland. 8 people now facing criminal charges there. And the Babylon fire in Utah, now scorching more than 150 square miles. Extreme weather testing communities from coast to coast. George Solis, NBC News.
Well, for more on the weather that is hitting your area, let's get a check on your Morning News Now forecast.
Angie Lastman joins us now with the latest. Angie, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Good morning. We've got more heat to talk about, and it's specifically really kind of building across the south and eventually moving to the east. Dry conditions out to the west, but notice that humidity is still going to be in place across parts of the east. We're going to continue to see those temperatures surging into the 90s across the board today. Notice 90 for Memphis, but feeling like 98. We've got 107 for the feels like in New Orleans. Across parts of the southwest, it's 113 for your high temperature in Phoenix today. Dodge City ends up at 99 degrees. And more of that as we get into tomorrow. Triple digits for Dallas for your actual temperature, feeling a touch warmer than that at 101. Birmingham, you feel like 100 degrees during the warmest point of the day. And St. Louis, same story for you. That heat starts to build for the east as we get into Friday as well. 90 degrees in Washington, D.C. We're back to those mid 80s by Saturday and then feeling a whole lot more comfortable by the time Sunday rolls around. But hanging on to those mid to 90s at least for Friday and Saturday in Charlotte. We stay into those 90s for Birmingham as well as we make our way through the weekend. Meanwhile, some thunderstorms firing up already this morning across parts of the Midwest. We've noticed just near Minneapolis and east of Duluth, we've got some of those thunderstorms. Plenty of lightning and some pockets of heavy rain that you'll have to dodge as you get through the day. But it's a little farther south that we're going to watch for that greater severe risk as we get into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. Notice it's the wind gusts, the hail, and maybe an isolated tornado that we're worried about. This extends from the Rockies all the way into the Midwest through the afternoon and evening hours today. By the time we get into tomorrow, a smaller region included in that severe risk, but still 7 million people across the Rockies, down through the southern plains and points east, St. Louis, Dodge City, Scotts Bluff, all included in that. And it's the hail and damaging winds that we'll watch. The good news is our tornado risk will be on the low end for tomorrow, but still watching for some flash flooding concerns through the day today. Green Bay, Waterloo, Omaha, all areas that I would watch for those hourly rainfall rates anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches through the day today. Back to you.
All right, Angie, thank you. Much more to come here on this hour of Morning News Now, including why some Walmart shoppers are sounding the alarm over the retail giant's latest pricing policy.
Up first, though, a newly released video allegedly showing the moments before and after the killing of Charlie Kirk. More from that multi-day hearing that'll decide whether his suspected killer will stand trial for murder. We'll take you inside the courtroom next.
We are back with never-before-seen video shown in a Utah courtroom. The footage allegedly captures the moments before and after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Utah prosecutors say the surveillance video appears to show the suspect, 23-year-old Tyler Robinson, wearing a red shirt there, driving through and walking around a parking garage at Utah Valley University on the day Kirk was killed.
The video was presented in that Utah courtroom yesterday during a multi-day pre-trial hearing to determine whether there's enough evidence to formally send Robinson to trial in Kirk's murder. During testimony, investigators claimed Robinson returned to campus multiple times. They say this video from later that morning appears to show him returning to the same parking garage in a different outfit and walking with a stiff limp. Authorities allege he was hiding the rifle used to shoot Kirk in his pant leg. Robinson has not yet entered a plea.
NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris has been following the developments for us, joins us with the latest. Let's talk about these new videos. Why are they important?
They're so important specifically for a timeline. Now we're seeing all of this video footage, not just of Robinson, but also of the vehicle that investigators say that he was brought to the campus. And it's putting together that he arrived well before the shooting to the campus and then left, returned. All of this is helping prosecutors link Robinson to the actual killing.
So based on these new videos that the prosecution showed, what do you think? How effective is their case shaping up to be?
We're getting such a significant preview of what the prosecutors had, so much more than we actually knew about with this, what prosecutors say is 16 hours of video depicting Robinson and that vehicle, as well as hundreds of hours of footage that just came from surveillance cameras, security cameras, and people that were just there using their camera phones. So there's a lot to this. I think the case is very strong, specifically from that probable cause perspective. Remember, there's a lower evidentiary standard for this proceeding.
You mentioned yesterday you were curious to see how the defense was going to tackle this. This is giving us hints into that. They called their first witness yesterday. It was a DNA forensics analyst, basically trying to poke holes in the prosecution with its DNA evidence. Talk about what we heard here. Is this an effective strategy?
Yeah, so from the DNA perspective, it's so incredibly important. So we learned from the prosecutor's witness who was on the stand, testified about DNA, that there was the towel. Remember, this towel was found wrapped around the rifle that they say is the murder weapon, a screwdriver. DNA presumptively tested for two people. Tyler Robinson was a match, as well as Lance Twiggs, Tyler Robinson's roommate. Now, he's not suspected of any crime. He's cooperating, but he's his roommate. So that's really, really important for prosecutors. Now, what did the defense do? They brought a witness on the stand who tried to say, well, this isn't conclusive. How reliable is it? And what I found interesting, prosecutors were getting really frustrated yesterday during this exchange. They said, this is a preliminary hearing. This is about whether or not there's enough evidence, not innocence or guilt. So there was a real deep dive on that DNA by the defense during this stage of the process.
We're really sort of getting to see each side's legal strategy play out, right? Like if this goes to trial, what we could see from both sides.
We certainly are. And I think from especially looking at what the defense is going to present, they've tried to undermine how much security was there, the investigation. Were there people that should have been spoken to that weren't? What was Tyler Robinson really the focus, but there was other evidence that was never pursued. So it's giving us a real look into what the defense is actually going to raise. And also from prosecutors during an hour-long exchange regarding certain evidence relating to the mission of Turning Point USA, we also heard prosecutors are really going to be focused on that motive, that Tyler Robinson disagreed with the tenets of that organization with regard to its positions on religion and politics. So that was an interesting foresight into what we could see at trial.
Real quickly, walk us through here what happens next.
So if the judge determines that there's probable cause, which my opinion I think is very likely, the next step will be an arraignment, and then Tyler Robinson will enter his plea. At that point, we'll be on the road to trial.
All right, Misty Maris, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Coming up, we obviously know working these hours that getting enough sleep is good for your heart and mind.
But could it also be good for your waistline? We don't want you to sleep on your weekly checkup. It's next.
We are back now with our weekly medical checkup. This week, we're starting with new safety concerns around the skyrocketing demand for those blockbuster GLP-1s.
Plus, we're looking at a secret to aging gracefully that has nothing to do with your skincare routine.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel joins us now to talk through these health headlines. Dr. Patel, good morning. Okay, so GLP-1 weight loss drugs, or being used as weight loss drugs, I should say, like Wegovy and Zepbound, they're increasingly available through online pharmacies. And now we have this new report. It finds that they are just pretty easy to get with really like little oversight from medical providers. What are the concerns with that, and what should people who want to try these medications know?
Yeah, so this was a team out of Yale that wanted to do what we know as mystery shopping. So they basically found 49 websites and then actually using a very standard simulated patient, basically acted as a patient across those 49 sites to see exactly, Savannah, what you're asking. What would they get? 45 of the 49 sites gave a prescription, 2 of them in less than 5 minutes, and only 26% of those sites required any sort of video visit or any extensive history from the patient. So this really tells you that, well, 1, it's easy to get a prescription, which we already knew, but I think 2, there's very little kind of counseling or even a very big question around the follow-up for these patients. So the doctor's orders here are very clear that you really have to understand what you're getting in your prescription, know what you're getting prescribed. 17 of those websites, Savannah and Joe, actually use compounded medications. We've talked about some of the safety risks there. So don't buy your medications blind. Ask questions in that visit, even if you feel like you just have a couple of minutes. This is your time. This is your health. And finally, treat for your lifetime. I think people have had this misunderstanding that this is potentially a short-term solution for weight loss. We really think of obesity as a chronic condition. I would never tell a diabetic to just use their insulin for a short period of time. The same applies to many of these medications.
Let's talk about sleep now. Experts say getting 7 or more hours a night is important for your overall health. We've got a new study that says sleep, though, can also impact your weight. So put these 2 things together for us.
We have had so many studies about sleep, but this is a bit of a different spin. 95 adults were separated into 2 groups, 6 weeks, where they had to sleep 90 minutes later than they normally would. So basically, think of the time that you go to bed and you had to wait it out for 90 more minutes. And then after those 6 weeks, reverted back to their normal sleeping patterns and got those 90 minutes back. What they found is that those 6 weeks, which isn't a lot of time, resulted in 1 pound of weight gain. So you can imagine that this could compound over time, and that this is a repeated pattern of losing sleep or getting less than optimal sleep. I think what was even more disturbing is how sedentary, even just sleeping less, you would think that that time would maybe make you more active. Quite the contrary, Joe. You actually found less activity the shorter your duration of sleep. And that was even more pronounced in men and postmenopausal women. So the doctor's orders here are very simple. We try to talk about this a lot. Prioritize your sleep. Aim for over 7 hours if you can. Some people need 7 to 8, but more rest usually leads to more movement.
All right. Good reason to get more sleep. Love that. All right. Finally, what's this unexpected aging secret that keeps our minds sharp?
All right. I wish this was an easy solution to aging or reversing aging. It's not so easy, but it's also never too late to start. These are researchers across Europe that looked at 144 adults and tried to understand what the association was of having more than one language fluency with the aging of your brain. They actually used a specialized AI technique to try to understand our brain clocks, if you will. And basically what they found is that the more languages you speak, the younger your brain. If you speak more than one language, your brain was actually 6 years younger. 2 or more languages, 7 years. 4 or more languages, as much as 13 years younger than someone who only spoke one language. Yeah, it's pretty pronounced. It's a limited study. It's observational, but here are the doctor's orders. It's never too late to learn. Doesn't matter how old you are. Try more than one language and try to aim for fluency in a conversation. Those are our goals today.
All right, picking up Portuguese this week.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's right. Thank you, Doctor.
Staying with health news, we're taking a closer look at Medicaid as part of our series, The Cost of Denial. This is where we investigate issues people face with insurance and health care. Federal policy changes are forcing several states to cut their Medicaid budgets. That could leave millions of previously insured Americans without coverage. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez explains the impact these cuts could have on people with disabilities who require full-time care.
Ready to start our day?
For Alexia Flory,
Pull this out here.
even just getting out of bed each morning can be a struggle.
There you go.
The 33-year-old has cerebral palsy
Get it down this side.
and requires her mom's constant attention.
It affects my muscles. It affects my leg muscles.
What is the hardest part of your day?
The hardest part of my day is waiting for someone to help me get things done because there's so much I want to do that I can't do myself.
But for more than a decade, Alexia says she's been thriving in the Baltimore suburbs, getting a college degree and studying in a local seminary. thanks to a Medicaid program that helps pay for 2 aides.
You're doing a great job, Lex.
They are family in every sense of the word.
All right, what do you want for breakfast today?
And also pays her parents, funding designed to keep people with disabilities out of institutions by allowing family members to care for them at home. But following a budget shortfall in Maryland, $126 million were slashed from these programs. Wages for family caregivers and external aides were set to be cut on the 1st of this month. But after NBC News began asking about the changes, at the last minute, the state postponed the cuts by up to 90 days.
I lose my life if these services go away.
Let me put your hat on because it's hot out here.
My aides who are helping me do all these things will go away because I need to find other jobs.
If all the proposed cuts take effect, Alexia's parents say they could lose at least $60,000 per year, money that helps keep her living at home. What does that mean for your family?
It means that we're going to have to tap into our 401. We're going to have to either sell this home and get something smaller.
They say Alexia's overnight caregiving hours have already been denied.
I bite my fingers every single night. I get anxiety. I cry out to God. God, it's got to end. You know, she qualified for everything for 5 years straight, and then this year she doesn't qualify for overnight services. But she's still the same Lexi.
In a statement, Maryland's Department of Health said costs for these programs skyrocketed by 144% over the last 5 years, adding the state needed to avoid overspending or risk violating federal guidelines, which could jeopardize all of its funding. Alexia feels she and people like her are being unfairly sacrificed to balance the state's budget.
People with disabilities are people too. We're not objects. We're people first.
Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News.
All right, coming up, big changes at Walmart as it rolls out digital price tags in its stores.
Why that has some shoppers concerned about so-called surveillance pricing. That's next.
Retail giant Walmart. The superstore is rolling out digital shelf tags. We're talking about those tags on the store shelves that say the price. As NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung explains, the change now has some shoppers concerned.
As Walmart announces price cuts on thousands of items this summer, there's growing concern over a separate move, adding digital price tags across their stores by the end of 2026.
So I know you guys have been hearing about this.
Some consumers fear those dynamic in-store tags mean companies could use their personal data to tailor prices.
They can change these whenever they want to.
I'm like, did they change because they walked up?
Well, you guys are not worried enough about dynamic pricing.
Walmart denies the tags are being used for surge pricing, adding it doesn't have the ability to change prices as customers are walking through the store, saying it's all to help workers with efficiency.
Instead of us spending hours changing the prices, we can spend hours helping the customers.
And a retail expert tells us even if the tech to personalize prices is available, it might not be used.
People know what the prices are. And so when they see it online and then they go into a store the next day and it's totally different, that's not going to leave them feeling good about the brand as a whole. And grocers know that.
Still, anxiety over so-called surveillance or algorithmic pricing is surging after several high-profile incidents online. Earlier this year, the New York Attorney General demanded grocery delivery app Instacart explain whether it was using personal data to set prices after a report found it charged some users up to 23% more for the same items. Instacart responding in a press release saying it would end what it calls item price tests and pledge the same prices for all customers shopping at the same stores. Then in April, a man sued JetBlue, alleging the airline used customers' internet history and demographic info to charge different fares. After seeing a since-deleted exchange on X where JetBlue recommended using incognito mode to get lower ticket prices. JetBlue saying the post was a mistake from an employee and that it does not use personal information or web browsing history to set individual pricing. The FTC said last year, broadly, personal data can be frequently used to set individual prices, according to initial findings.
You can really learn so much about somebody and what their habits are, what their preferences are, and ultimately use that to set prices.
While there is federal legislation proposed to stop this, some states aren't waiting. At least 24 states are considering laws on the topic, with Maryland, Connecticut, and New York all passing surveillance pricing bans in the past few months. And surveillance pricing isn't the only AI pricing controversy. A federal lawsuit filed last month alleges roughly a dozen California gas station chains, including Walmart, used an AI software that allows, quote, competitors to pool confidential data and generate prices, which the plaintiffs argue is price collusion and violates state antitrust laws. Calibrate Technologies, the company behind the tech, says it disagrees with the allegations in the lawsuit and that it will serve its customers with lawful, innovative fuel pricing technology. Walmart says it will respond to the lawsuit in court. At a time when consumers are watching prices closely, concern growing that the prices may be watching them too. Brian Chung, NBC News.
Let's stay on technology. The time where robots will be able to take care of our household chores is getting closer, with a lot of companies betting big on the technology. But how do you train a robot to sweep, to mop, or to fold clothes? Well, one company has come up with a solution: paying humans to shoot videos of themselves. NBC News Chief Consumer Investigative Correspondent Vicki Nguyen took a look.
Now let's put the strap on.
Why would anyone mount a camera on their head and narrate the basics of folding laundry, cooking dinner, or washing dishes? It's all part of a new push to train robots to do human chores. Last year, digital artist Daryl Udell saw a post on staffing app InstaWork that piqued his curiosity. Help develop robots. Turns out it wasn't that technical. What is the job? What do you have to do?
You're getting essentially paid to, as I see it, to kind of like live life.
Trainers can make as much as $50 for every hour of footage, depending on their skill level and what they're asked to do.
By the way, could you lift your legs up, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
That footage is then processed and analyzed to help robots mimic our every move.
Every day we're learning about new use cases from robot companies about the type of data they want.
Sumir Magani is the CEO of InstaWork. He says in the last year, he's seen a growing number of tech firms using his app to hire trainers for their robots.
What do you say to people who are worried these robots are going to put people out of work?
We've collected 0.04% of the data that exists, so it's just really early. But I think there's countless examples in history where technology gets rolled out and jobs change, responsibilities change.
Magani believes as robots and autonomous vehicles become a bigger part of everyday life, companies will need to hire more humans to train and support them.
There's no such thing as replacing humans, because ultimately all of the technology is here to serve us.
One ex-CEO, Bunt Burnick, recently hired 200 workers at his Bay Area factory to build an army of these, a robotic butler named Neo, designed to help around the house.
Automation changes what we do. If you look at what people did 100 years ago, very few people do that today. And I think if you look back 100 years from now, a lot of people would be like, man, like people did that? Like that's a bad use of people.
Burnick says 2027 could be a breakout year as his company plans to build more than 100,000 robots ready to hit the market. Other U.S. companies like Figure and Tesla also ramping up production.
You have a very optimistic view.
100%. I mean, generally, we're still around, right? Like things have a tendency to work out.
Vicki Nguyen.
Another major global sporting event is on the horizon. The Los Angeles Olympics are just over 2 years away, and the International Olympic Committee appears to be paving the way for the full Russian team to return to the Games.
Yesterday, the IOC announced it was lifting a suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee. That suspension been in place since the start of the war with Ukraine. Since then, some Russian athletes have been competing with neutral status.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News sports reporter Rohan Nadkarni. Rohan, good to have you with us. Walk us through yesterday's announcement. What exactly is it that the IOC is saying here?
Yeah, so the IOC is provisionally lifting a suspension it had on the Russian Olympic Committee. As you guys mentioned, started after the invasion of Ukraine. You know, their reasoning was that committee was originally suspended because the Russian Olympic Committee was working out of occupied territories in Ukraine. Russia said they're not going to work out of those occupied territories anymore. They're also kind of lifting a recommendation they had for restrictions on a vetting process for athletes to ensure that they were neutral. Basically, athletes that competed in Milan earlier this year were vetted to be neutral. They couldn't support the war. Those restrictions have also been lifted. So it's paving the way for them to come back in a couple of years.
As we've been talking about just this hour, the Ukraine war is ongoing, no clear end in sight. You laid out some of the reasoning there. Has something changed recently for the IOC? I mean, do we know why now?
You know, I think this has kind of always been something that IOC President Kirsty Coventry wanted to do. You know, she mentioned in a news conference that when she was an athlete, if she was held responsible for the actions of her government, she wouldn't have been able to compete as a swimmer for Zimbabwe. But it's definitely a controversial decision. I mean, one Ukrainian athlete called it absolutely shameful. The UK has criticized this decision. Their culture secretary says they continue to stand with Ukraine. So I think for Kirsty Coventry, she's tried to push the Olympics to be as apolitical as possible. I think they might look at it as hypocritical if other countries rather are engaged in acts of war to penalize Russia. So they're trying to make this push to make the Olympics as apolitical as possible.
What does this mean for Russian athletes, especially as they potentially need to prepare?
Yeah, well, the first thing they have to do is get clean. As you guys know, Russia was also under sanctions. They haven't played under their flag since the 2016 Olympics due to a doping scandal. So, a big thing is going to be getting back in the right testing pools. They're going to have to do third-party drug testing that's going to be overseen by the IOC, in part because of the doping issues that they've had. There are a lot of upcoming qualifications that the Russian athletes are going to go to, but it definitely is going to give them a chance. They've sent something in the neighborhood of 30 athletes to the last couple Olympics. This kind of really does pave the way for them to send hundreds.
Beyond the testing here, what's next in the process? I mean, just how likely is it we'll see the Russian flag, hear the Russian anthem at the LA Olympics in 2 years?
For sure. Well, what's next for sure is qualification, right? All these athletes still have to qualify. They have to enter competitions. An arbitration court recently ruled that Russian athletes should be allowed to participate in qualifications. As far as the flag, anthem, etc., the IOC is still waiting to make that decision. That's going to come, I think, later in this process, whether or not they were able to come out under their flag. Some athletes have still kind of protested that. There are other sport governing bodies that are not welcoming Russia at the moment. So I do think there's going to be more developments on this, and I think it's going to play out over the next couple of years.
Rohad Nankarni, thanks as always for joining us this morning. Coming up, a Hail Mary like no other hurled into motion by one lucky bride-to-be.
After the break, how the Arizona Cardinals helped her matrimony dreams come true, all with a simple email. We'll explain next on Morning News Now. We end this hour with the ultimate wedding Hail Mary.
An NFL team owner is helping a future bride have the big day of her dreams. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has this story.
When soon-to-be bride Olivia Capoletti fired off this email to the Arizona Cardinals, she knew it was an unusual request.
I know this is probably the longest shot, but I'm desperate.
Olivia and her fiancé John are getting married this October in New Jersey, but the couple faced one small obstacle. The only suite large enough at the hotel for Olivia to get ready with her bridal party was already booked, reserved in advance for whichever team would be playing the Giants that weekend at nearby MetLife Stadium.
So I very kindly but persistently followed up with them month after month.
Finally, the NFL schedule came out. The team would be the Cardinals. Olivia says she sees it now as a sign.
My dad passed away, unfortunately, about 3 years ago now, and he was just the best. We always look for cardinals as signs of a lost loved one. I know a lot of people do that. We definitely do that, my family.
And so she threw a Hail Mary, hoping her bold but polite request would reach the right person. And it did.
I'm Michael Bidwell from the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes, that's the Cardinals owner telling Liv the good news.
I'm happy to give it up to you and your bridesmaids to use during your wedding weekend.
Did you expect to get a response?
Never in a million years, no. It was so surreal.
A small gesture, but one that means more than Olivia could have ever expected.
He absolutely is watching over me. It's definitely a sign from Dad.
Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
You never know if you don't send the email.
Dad,
There you go. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, back on the attack, the U.S. military launching powerful strikes and reimposing oil sanctions on Iran overnight. U.S. Central Command saying more than 80 targets were hit in response to Iranian strikes on vessels near the Strait of Hormuz. Now President Trump declaring the ceasefire is over as Iran retaliates. What this means for the state of the conflict. Pivotal summit. President Trump wrapping up the final day of the NATO summit. He's holding important meetings with European leaders, the same ones he has clashed with over wars in Iran and Ukraine. We'll have the latest developments from Turkey. And as live sports captivate our attention, we can't help but wonder, has binge watching come to an end? Some viewers are rethinking their viewing habits and how streaming services are scrambling to keep eyes on the screens. So we used to have appointment viewing, then we like binging.
Right.
Now we want appointment viewing again, and then we'll go back to binge.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a binger. I want it available to me if I have the time to watch the next one.
But there is something about the communal experience.
Yeah, that's true. And when it's like a watch party, which you told us about that.
All right, let's begin this hour with breaking news out of the Middle East. President Trump says the U.S. ceasefire with Iran is over. That's after U.S. Central Command unleashed a powerful wave of strikes on dozens of Iranian targets. They say it was in response to Iranian attacks on commercial tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says it was responding by targeting U.S. bases in the Gulf.
The latest escalation appears to be one step too far for the president. Speaking overnight at the NATO summit in Turkey, Mr. Trump said that truce agreed to with Iran to end the war was now over, though negotiations could continue. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel has the latest from the Iranian capital, Tehran. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. The U.S. and Iran exchanged fire overnight, and this morning Iran says it launched attacks at U.S. military bases in the Middle East. This is the most serious escalation in weeks and raises concerns that the war between the U.S. and Iran could be starting again. This is the moment when the U.S. attacked Iran's Bandar Abbas port overnight. The video captured on an Iranian cell phone. U.S. Central Command released more video of what it said were American attacks on 80 Iranian military targets, including command and control, radar, and missile systems. CENTCOM said U.S. forces also struck 60 Iranian small boats used to attack and harass ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran fired back, air raid sirens wailing in Kuwait this morning, as Iran's Revolutionary Guard says Iran launched 85 attacks on U.S. military bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. The U.S. hasn't commented on that Iranian claim. There were no immediate reports of casualties.
Thank you very much.
Speaking at a NATO summit in Turkey, President Trump had harsh words for Iran and suggested the ceasefire may be finished.
I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people, and they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
But moments later, Trump said he was not breaking off negotiations with Iran completely.
I don't care. They can talk, but I think they're wasting their time. They're a bunch of lying guys.
The U.S. and NATO accuse Iran of starting this latest escalation yesterday when Iran attacked 3 commercial ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran insists it has sovereignty over the strait and wants commercial vessels to only use routes it has approved, attacking ships if they don't comply. The U.S. says passage through Hormuz must be unobstructed and free. Negotiations between the U.S. and Iran have been paused while millions of Iranians mourn the country's former supreme leader, killed by the U.S. and Israel 4 months ago. Iranian officials I'm speaking to here in Tehran are not sounding optimistic about the future of negotiations, accusing the U.S. of violating the Memorandum of Understanding signed between the U.S. and Iran.
All right, Richard, thank you. Well, for more on the discussions at the NATO summit, let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, who is traveling with the president. She joins us live now from Turkey. Monica, good morning. So we had the president say he thinks the ceasefire is over, but does seem willing to continue the negotiations. What do we think happens next?
And look, Savannah and Joe, we have seen similar language from the president where he has threatened to potentially resume major combat military operations before in this conflict. But this does seem to take on a new tone, because when the president was asked very directly whether he believes that the already shaky ceasefire is now over, he said, yes, to me, I think it might be over, as you saw there in Richard's piece, but did follow that up by saying that he will still allow his U.S. negotiating team, led by the vice president, by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to continue. So those things can occur on parallel tracks, but this rhetoric really is a bit escalatory at a moment where we can remind everybody we are in a country that borders Iran, that is just next door, and the U.S. and Iran are continuing to trade this fire. Now, we have seen these kinds of skirmishes and this kind of back and forth, even in the last couple of weeks while that memorandum of understanding was signed and agreed to. But the U.S. and officials that we had been in touch with had always described those as proportional and retaliatory. But the difference here is really what we saw yesterday and whether the U.S. will continue to strike some of those targets in Iran and for how long. So we know that that is the backdrop and the conversation to all of this here at NATO, already at a time when the president is criticizing NATO member countries and some European allies for what he says is not enough support for the war that the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran. But of course, that's just one of the topics here, but certainly one that we expect will be dominant, Savannah and Joe, in addition to, of course, the war in Ukraine.
Monica, this is a pretty quick trip to Turkey. What else is on the president's agenda today?
Yeah, if this all goes as expected, the president really will have only spent about 30 hours on the ground here. He arrived yesterday. He met with the Turkish president. He took part in a dinner with the other NATO leaders. And then today he is about to sit down with the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, where we know President Zelenskyy is expected to continue to implore the U.S. and NATO member countries to continue to provide air defense systems to Ukraine and other potential weapon systems that they have been pretty desperate for as this conflict is nearing the 4.5-year mark. And then the president will also be sitting down with the president of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara. We expect that will take place after the Ukraine meeting. And then after that, the president will continue potentially to have other quick meetings or pull-asides here at the NATO summit. Sometimes those pop out and pop up pretty organically. Again, with everything going on in Iran, it's potentially that we could see some adds to the schedule. But after that, the president will hold a news conference, we expect, where he could also take questions on all of this. As we have seen in past summits, sometimes those run pretty late and go pretty long. So we'll see what kind of engagement we have there with the president, as the U.S. press corps, of course, has many, many questions for him before he returns to Washington later this evening. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Monica Alba, thank you so much. Let's continue our conversation with NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, good morning. Let's start with the latest developments out of Iran. Based on the scale, the scope here of these attacks from both the U.S. and Iran, do you think this is the worst escalation of violence since that truce was agreed?
I think it probably is, Savannah. It's a significant escalation. But what I think is very notable as well is that in addition to the military escalation, we've seen something else, right? Up until now, in previous ceasefire violations, it's almost become like a dance where everybody knows the steps. The Iranians violate the ceasefire. The United States strikes a radar site or strikes some launch sites. In this case, we've also added in an asymmetric element. The United States has revoked Iran's ability to sell oil on the international market. So that's our own sort of version of an asymmetric attack on the Iranians. And I think that speaks to the seriousness of this moment.
Is a return to war inevitable if President Trump is saying this truce is now over? I mean, what do you expect next here?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm prepared to say it's inevitable, but I am prepared to say that we're at great risk for resuming large-scale combat operations, all-out war. So I think we are at sort of a precipice now. It's important, I think, now for the Iranians to show some sort of goodwill. I think, we shouldn't forget that every ceasefire violation, as I said, has been initiated by the Iranians. So when we talk about the Iranians are difficult to trust, this is what people are talking about. So it's going to be important now for the Iranians to show some willingness to really negotiate in good faith. Otherwise, I do fear the worst.
Colonel, let's switch our focus to Ukraine. President Trump is meeting with President Zelenskyy this morning. Any moment now at the NATO summit, the Ukrainians are pushing for more Patriot defense missile systems. Is it clear if the U.S. will or is able to supply those to them?
Certainly the United States is able to supply it. I know that there has been much discussion about a reduction. There's been a lot of these missiles used, but I do believe the American industrial base is up to the task of producing what's needed. That said, the president has been very unclear on where he stands on this. In the last several months, the Ukrainians have shown sort of an increased offensive capability. They've struck deep inside Russia. Russia has responded with extraordinarily violent attacks on the Ukrainian capital. So this war here in Ukraine over the last several months has increased in intensity. But the Ukrainians feel like they might be slowly gaining the upper hand. We've seen reports more than 1 million casualties on the Russian side. Unbelievable numbers. So I think the President Zelenskyy is going to make the case that he can continue to push the Russians back. The President Trump, however, he said, maybe it's time for a ceasefire. So that's sort of the playing card that Trump has to either get Zelenskyy to the negotiating table or to allow him to continue to press the Russians. We'll see.
And Colonel, our Monica Alba just mentioned President Trump's criticisms of NATO have resurfaced at this meeting. He's called Spain a, quote, terrible partner, ordered trade to be halted with them. He's also renewed his demands for Greenland, which we saw was a huge issue last year. How much of a strain is this putting on U.S. relations with our allies?
It's a strain. NATO is probably the most important and most successful military alliance, possibly, in world history. It's brought general global peace for many, many decades, nearly 80 years or more than 80 years. The NATO alliance has been the cornerstone of peace and prosperity in the West. So I am confident that the alliance will endure like a long marriage. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be friction. I don't know that we're set for divorce at this point. I think this is a friction point. And everyone, I think, in the national security world is very hopeful that we can get past this.
Appreciate the metaphor there. Colonel Warren, thanks so much as always. Well, back here in New York, officials say a 37-story high-rise building was at risk of partially collapsing yesterday. It's just a few blocks from our studio here in Midtown Manhattan. Crews have been working around the clock in an effort to stabilize it, while residents in the area have been forced to evacuate their homes. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has been on the scene. Emily, good morning.
Hey there. Well, as you can see, we've been able to get a bit closer to the building because crews have made significant headway overnight, including adding more steel, noting there has not been any further movement to the structure. Still, it's anticipated to remain a tense situation in this congested area for the next several days as crews work to avert any kind of disaster. This morning, the rush to fully stabilize a high-rise with sunken floors and buckled support beams. Video from construction workers 21 floors up showing steel bending inside the building.
Columns are not supposed to bend like that.
Overnight, workers starting emergency repairs after drones had captured what appears to be a slight lean to the building located around the corner from Grand Central Terminal in the heart of Midtown.
We are feeling confident that many of the emergency shoring measures that have been put in place is stabilizing the situation.
Engineers and first responders first swarming the scene Tuesday when construction crews raised concerns the building was unstable.
No coming in, only out.
The emergency prompting the urgent evacuation of 9 buildings in the area, including schools, restaurants, hotels, even a local news station forced to broadcast outside.
Do I have to grab my stuff? Do I have to go to another hotel? We're here until Sunday, and this is going to impact our ability to go do the things we wanted to do, and it just made me nervous.
A limited number of residents in the area have been allowed to return.
I can say right now that the building is stable. It has not moved since we started monitoring it since earlier today.
The 37-story building is part of a cutting-edge project, converting Pfizer's former global headquarters into a 1,600-unit luxury apartment building. The developer telling NBC News safety is our #1 priority, adding the affected area is a small section. But the shaky structure is driving further scrutiny over the integrity of buildings in New York City after a public housing building partially collapsed last year in the Bronx, and on the heels of this deadly scene of a parking garage in shambles in 2023. Civil engineers say stabilizing this latest building will be complicated.
You literally have to shore up every single floor all the way up to make sure that the load is carried down to the foundation properly.
Fortunately, there have been no reports of injuries. As for the cause, that is under investigation. But we know that part of construction involved adding an additional 11 floors. City records show that the project has faced numerous fines related to violations, including falling debris. But there are no prior reports related to structural issues. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you.
Calls are mounting from high-profile Democrats in Washington, D.C. for Graham Plattner to drop out of the Senate race in Maine. This comes after new accusations of non-consensual sexual conduct were made against the embattled Democratic candidate. Plattner denies these latest allegations. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles is covering the story. Joins us from Washington with the latest. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. You're right. This situation has become a waiting game for Democrats in Maine. They are paralyzed and unable to move forward in what may be the most important Senate race on the map. Only Graham Plattner can decide if it's time for him to quit the race, and he still hasn't made up his mind.
Thank you, Maine.
A new bombshell rocking the critical Senate race in Maine that could determine control of Congress. Maine's Democratic Senate nominee, Graham Plattner, is facing mounting pressure this morning from top Democrats to end his campaign. It comes as another woman stepped forward overnight with new allegations of non-consensual sexual conduct. Plattner's ex-girlfriend, Lindsay Fiffeld, telling the Washington Post that he repeatedly removed protection without her consent during sex, saying he would do it in a sneaky way. He wouldn't tell me. Plattner's campaign calling the allegation categorically false and politically motivated. Fifield previously accused Plattner of aggressive physical conduct, especially when he was drinking, which he also denied. Fifield telling CNN that Plattner later apologized to her for his behavior.
I'm hoping more people will come forward at least saying this is he was known for being very rough with people. I mean, like he apologized sober the next day on many of these occasions.
This after another former romantic partner of Plattner's, Jenny Rassicote, accused him of rape, saying he forced himself on her 5 years ago.
Did Graham Plattner rape you?
By definition, yes. Absolutely.
Plattner denies her allegations, too. A source familiar with Plattner's thinking tells NBC News he's still undecided about whether to step down in the race against GOP incumbent Susan Collins. Two of his top Democratic supporters, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, releasing statements saying it is time for him to step aside, a sentiment echoed by many Maine Democrats.
Oh, tell him, nice try, buddy, but get out.
But some supporters are sticking with him.
We have to go with what we have.
Plattner now just has 6 days to step down to allow the state party to pick his replacement. He wants the party to choose someone who shares his progressive political views, but the parties have yet to even figure out a process to pick a new candidate, and they can't move forward until Plattner decides to end his campaign. Joe?
All right, Ryan, thank you.
Well, there is another round of storms hitting the Midwest today, while millions are under heat alerts down in the south.
Our Angie Lastman has the latest with our morning news now weather. Angie, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Good morning. We've got more heat to talk about, and it's specifically really kind of building across the south and eventually moving to the east. Dry conditions out to the west, but notice that humidity is still going to be in place across parts of the east. We're going to continue to see those temperatures surging into the 90s across the board today. Notice 90 for Memphis, but feeling like 98. We've got 107 for the feels like in New Orleans. Across parts of the southwest, it's 113 for your high temperature in Phoenix today. Dodge City ends up at 99 degrees. And more of that as we we get into tomorrow. Triple digits for Dallas for your actual temperature, feeling a touch warmer than that at 101. Birmingham, you feel like 100 degrees during the warmest point of the day. And St. Louis, same story for you. That heat starts to build for the east as we get into Friday as well. 90 degrees in Washington, D.C. We're back to those mid-80s by Saturday and then feeling a whole lot more comfortable by the time Sunday rolls around. But hanging on to those mid to 90s at least for Friday and Saturday in Charlotte. We stay into those 90s for Birmingham as well as we make our way through the weekend. Meanwhile, some thunderstorms firing up already this morning across parts of the Midwest. We've noticed just near Minneapolis and east of Duluth, we've got some of those thunderstorms. Plenty of lightning and some pockets of heavy rain that you'll have to dodge as you get through the day. But it's a little farther south that we're going to watch for that greater severe risk as we get into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. Notice it's the wind gusts, the hail, and maybe an isolated tornado that we're worried about. This extends from the Rockies all the way into the Midwest through the afternoon and evening hours today. By the time we get into tomorrow, a smaller region included in that severe risk, but still 7 million people across the Rockies, down through the southern plains and points east, St. Louis, Dodge City, Scotts Bluff, all included in that. And it's the hail and damaging winds that we'll watch. The good news is our tornado risk will be on the low end for tomorrow, but still watching for some flash flooding concerns through the day today. Green Bay, Waterloo, Omaha, all areas that I would watch for those hourly rainfall rates anywhere from an inch to 2 inches through the day today.
We're back with the latest from Cuba. The island is dealing with its third nationwide blackout in 7 months. The power crisis is making an already dire situation worse, with growing shortages of fuel, food, and medicine across the island. NBC News correspondent George Solis shows us how it's impacting day-to-day life for Cubans as they endure the brutal summer heat.
In Cuba, the lights slowly coming back on. The country's already frail power grid collapsed again, plunging the island of 10 million people into darkness.
Es desesperante, ¿por qué? Porque no hay fluido, está el mosquito, la calor, que es insoportable.
Monday's total blackout is the third this year and the 8th since October 2025, as the island's aging electric grid fails to keep up with demand. Rolling blackouts leave everyday Cubans with only a few hours of power a day, and with feels like temperatures hovering around 100 degrees. In all the hotels, there's always power, this man told NBC News. But for Cubans, he says, there's no electricity. Here you can see solar panels on the street so people can charge their electronics. But no power also means no refrigerated food and a lack of basic services. This Havana resident says water hasn't been available in her area in 30 days, adding there are elderly and bedridden people where she lives. The country's power crisis worsened this year after the Trump administration halted fuel shipments from Venezuela and Mexico to Cuba and threatened tariffs on countries supplying the island with oil. But a lifeline this year by allowing one oil tanker from Russia to dock in Cuba. Cuba's president taking to X on Monday, accusing the U.S. of, quote, trying to create social unrest through asphyxiation. In March, I was given unprecedented access inside a hospital in Cuba, where medical staff is trying to treat the most vulnerable. But with power going out for up to 8 hours at a time, refrigerated medication can spoil. Doctors coming up with other ways to keep it cold.
You try to save it. Of course.
At this hospital, medical staff telling me so far they've been lucky, but across the country, people are dying because of the fuel crisis. Cuba's state-run electrical union says right now they are focusing on getting power back to vital services like hospitals. But for millions of Cubans, that still means another day of waiting in the heat and the dark. George Solis, NBC News.
Turning now to London, where Prince Harry is facing a major legal setback. A British judge has ruled against the Duke of Sussex in his high-profile privacy case against the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. Harry, along with several other celebrities, includes Elton John and Elizabeth Hurley, they accused the newspapers of using illegal methods to obtain private information, but the court found they failed to prove those claims.
The publisher is calling the decision an overwhelming victory for the free press. Well, Harry is firing back, calling the ruling, quote, a complete and obvious whitewash, claiming the court went to shocking lengths to exonerate the newspapers. This decision comes as Harry continues a solo trip to the UK. During the visit, his charity work has been overshadowed by questions about his legal battles and his ongoing rift with the royal family.
For more on all of this, we are joined now by NBC royal commentator Emily Nash in London. Emily, good morning. So first, let's talk about that ruling. How's it been received across the UK, particularly from the British media and the public?
Well, as you can imagine, it's been pretty damning as far as the media are concerned. This was seen as an attack on the British press and on journalistic integrity, and most of the newspapers have come out fighting this morning. The Mail, which is one of Associated titles, has called it a vindication, saying it was nothing less than a conspiracy to destroy that newspaper. The Sun have gone with a pun on Harry Kane, the England football captain, saying Harry's caned. There's a lot of, indignation from the media that this trial was allowed to go ahead. But the British people, it's more difficult to say at this stage. There was certainly some sympathy for him not being able to stay at Buckingham Palace when that news came earlier in the week. And it's hard to know at this stage how much this media-centric story is really impacting on ordinary lives.
Emily, this has been going on a long time. So after 7 years of litigation, does this ruling effectively close the chapter on Prince Harry's legal battles with the British tabloids?
Well, it's not quite over yet. There's still to come a costs hearing to determine who is going to foot the bill for this extraordinary £50 million legal bill. That will happen later this month, I understand. But, of course, everyone is hoping that now he's taken the final newspaper group to court. He hasn't been successful this time, but he did win 2 out of 3 cases, that he will be able to put this behind him and move on with his life.
Despite this legal defeat, Harry has been busy with charity events this week. What has he been doing on this trip other than that? What's on his schedule?
Well, yesterday he was at an event for the Invictus Games Foundation. It was largely overshadowed, unfortunately, by the court ruling. He's doing more work with the organisation today at the Royal Hospital Chelsea, famously home to the Chelsea pensioners. So he's surrounded by veterans and service people, a place where he's usually very comfortable and happy, and there will be no media presence there today. So it will give him a chance to get a bit of distance after yesterday's very bruising encounter.
And as you know, a lot of attention on reports of Harry not staying at a royal residence. Have we seen any signs of a thaw in his relationship with the royal family, especially his dad, King Charles?
Well, I think the trip couldn't really have got off to a worse start. You only have to see the row going on behind the scenes between Harry's team and palace officials over whether or not he should have stayed at Buckingham Palace. But at the end of the day, this is the King's second son. The King is a father and a grandfather who would dearly love to see Harry and his grandchildren if that does become possible later this week. And I think all eyes will be on that situation now to see whether, despite this very turbulent start to the visit, they may be able to reunite.
All right, Emily Nash joining us from Buckingham Palace. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, strike survivor, a Florida lifeguard grateful he's still alive after a freak accident on the 4th of July.
How this patrol was shockingly different from other shifts, plus his warning to beachgoers next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the latest on Senator Mitch McConnell's health.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona has that and more. Mel, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. We begin with an update on Mitch McConnell's health. After being hospitalized for 3 weeks following a cardiac arrest incident at his house, speculation began to swirl online about his condition, with some on the far right suggesting McConnell might be brain dead. But multiple Senate leaders said they've spoken to McConnell by phone in recent days. That includes Senate GOP leader John Thune, who had a lengthy and substantive conversation with McConnell that covered a variety of topics, including national security, according to a spokesman. But we still don't know McConnell's prognosis or his timeline for return, with McConnell's office just saying he continues to improve. Meanwhile, in Michigan, progressives are joining forces in key congressional races. House candidate William Lawrence and Senate contender Abdul El Sayed cross-endorsed each other on Tuesday, as progressives look to be the Democratic Party's standard bearers. Lawrence, an activist who is running for the 7th Congressional District, is in a 3-way primary battle for the Democratic nomination in one of the country's most competitive battleground races. And El Sayed is vying for the Democratic nomination for the state's open Senate seat, which is another contested open primary. Both races will be closely watched this fall and could help determine control of Congress next year. And finally, a fight over fighter jets. According to the Washington Post, citing two people familiar with the plans, there was a dispute among Trump's cabinet officials over who could ride in fighter jets during the July 4th flyovers. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman planned to fly his personal collection of fighter jets as part of Saturday's parade of military aircraft. And he planned to bring along several passengers, including Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. But the FAA determined that the jets were too risky to fly over a densely populated area, with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy standing by the ruling. The dispute, though, was elevated to President Trump, who encouraged Blanche to still go, while Isaacman decided to end up finding a workaround, allowing him and Blanche to take flight. And that's what's making news and politics this morning, guys.
All right, Mel, thank you so much. Now, on the same day as that flyover, a Florida lifeguard, well, he says he's lucky to be alive after a lightning strike nearly hit him while on duty.
Even after that terrifying moment, though, his first thought was helping keep others safe while celebrating the holiday. Reporter Rob Hazen from our NBC affiliate in Orlando brings us his story.
The lifeguard had just gotten out of his truck here on the beach when he says it sounded like an explosion. And even after being shocked, he was able to drive down the beach, warning people to get to safety.
I was like, I'm alive. I couldn't believe it.
Damian Curry told me he volunteered to work July 4th and was on the sand near the Seminole Avenue approach in Ormond Beach when the bolt hit.
I got my hand on the side of the truck and all of a sudden just boom, it just blows up and I jump through the truck. So I jump, like I get lifted off my feet.
It was an indirect strike, the energy transferring from the patrol truck into his body.
And I'm shaking. I mean, I'm violently shaking. It was like I was in panic. My whole left side of my body was tingling, pins and needles. I mean, it was like a bomb went off.
Curry says he got himself together, then still was able to drive the truck and warn others.
And I'm literally on the PA with the lights on, like, get off the beach. I just got struck by lightning. Like, you're going to die.
Curry says when that bolt hit, there was only a light drizzle falling, and that really shows how fast a storm can turn dangerous.
If you see clouds and hear thunder, get off the beach, go inside. It's not worth your life. It's not. I had a close call with death, and it is just not worth it.
He went to the hospital and is doing better now, but the booms from July 4th fireworks and Sunday's lightning storms did make him have panic attacks. Lifeguarding is a part-time thing for Curry. He also owns a landscaping business and is running for Ormond Beach mayor. He loves watching over the beaches, but says he's probably going to take a break for a while.
My wife wrote on the fridge, no more lifeguarding.
Good advice there. Our thanks to Bob Hazen for that report. Coming up, keeping cool on a budget. With summer in full swing, temperatures across the country are climbing. For many people, so are those electric bills. Thankfully, Vicki Wynn is here with tips on how to cool down your spending. Stick around. We'll be right back. Much of the country still cooling off from that sweltering heat wave last week. The temps weren't the only things that climbed, so did electric bills for many Americans. So to look at some of the ways to keep yourself cool without burning through your budget, I'm joined here by NBC News Now anchor and chief consumer investigative correspondent Vicki Wynn. Vicki, good to have you with us. So we know electricity costs are expected to rise this year. How much more should families expect to pay?
The average American household, Joe, this summer is expected to spend almost $800 just on summer cooling costs alone. That's a jump of 10.5% from last year. And this is part of a bigger trend. Cooling costs on general are up almost 40% since 2020. And Joe, there are three reasons for this. One, the power grid and updates to the infrastructure. Those costs are being passed along to us. Those AI data centers, they're sucking up a ton of juice. And also, it's just getting hotter. Climate forecasters actually say this could be one of the hottest summers we have on record. And how much you pay really depends on where you live. So if you live in the mountain area, that's Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, you're seeing a price increase of about 14% over last summer in your cooling bills. If you are in the western Midwest, that's Kansas, Missouri, Minnesota, you're looking at about a 5% increase, so a little lower there.
So this means air conditioning is important. We need you to settle this AC debate that we literally had 2 days ago in my household.
Oh, okay.
When you leave, do
Yes.
you turn it off Or is it harder to turn it back on and then heat things back or cool things back? It's already heated. What are you supposed to do? Should you turn the AC off or leave it on?
So the experts say a lot of people think you should never turn it off because it's going to be so expensive to cool it back down when you get home. They say that's actually largely a myth because modern AC can handle it. But the recommendation is go ahead and turn it way up to 78 degrees. When you're gone, most of us are gone from the house from 8 to 10 hours a day. You don't need to be cooling it that whole time. And that's going to save you a lot of money. It's going to save you wear and tear on your unit. When you're home, 70 to 78 degrees. People freak out when I say 78 degrees when you're home. It can be done, people. We do it. We keep our house at 76 to 78. Just, it's shorts and T-shirt weather, tank top weather. You will survive. And for every degree that you can turn up that thermostat, you're saving 3% on your electric bill. So it really adds up.
And I don't know if I can get ours much lower than that, honestly, at the place. It just doesn't seem to ever get there.
It's summer. We're meant to feel the feels, okay?
All right. So what are some free or low-cost steps people can take to try and lower their heating bills beyond what you just said there?
Very simply, just close the blinds, right? Block the sun as much as you can. Consumer Reports did a study, and they found that those medium-colored draperies that have, like, the white plastic backing can reduce heat gain by 30%. Plant trees, if you possibly can. Definitely seal up any leaks on the windows and doors. And that's like weather stripping tape. It's $20 at the hardware store, very cheap. Making sure that you keep your air conditioning filter clean or replacing it every 3 months. More often if you don't vacuum a lot or if you have like a ton of cats or a lot of pets. And also using your fan. If you have a floor fan or a ceiling fan, put that thermostat up a couple degrees, turn the fan on. That's going to keep you really cool. And just turn it off when you leave because the fan cools you. It doesn't cool the room.
Yeah, that's a good point. Love that. Vicki Wynn, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Joe.
Thank you so much. Later this morning, the 2026 Primetime Emmy We actually right now do have breaking news out of Turkey. President Trump sitting down for a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Mr. Trump previously met with Zelenskyy less than 3 weeks ago at a G7 meeting in France. After their meeting, the U.S. president said Russia should make a deal to end the war in Ukraine, citing mounting casualties. The two men meeting now. Let's listen in.
Very good stories to tell. What's going on? He wants to see a settlement, and I think President Putin wants to see a settlement. And usually that means a settlement, but who knows? This is a tough one. But I just, we just had our NATO meeting, and it was a great meeting. You probably heard it was a great meeting. There was a lot of love in that room, a lot of unity. And I don't think it could have been, Mark, what do you think? It couldn't have gone much better. Do you have a feeling as to what you just saw?
Very positive. A lot of unity, strength in that unity.
Yeah, really good. Scott, what do you think?
Yes, sir. All the Europeans, they attributed you to saving NATO, and they want to do what they're supposed to do and do the right thing.
Yeah, there was something very special. And I will say that what they've done with Turkey and President Erdogan has been a friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. Strong man, good man, and he's done a fantastic job. Every road, everything's perfect. He's from the airport to the destination, everything's been perfect. So we had a really good meeting, and we thought this would be a good time for President Zelenskyy and I to meet, and we'll see what we can do. But we've actually developed a good relationship. It's hard to believe, right? From the Oval Office to now, I think we've developed a very good relationship. And
this is not the end.
No, this is not. This is going to be the beginning, maybe.
Yeah.
Just the beginning. And the country has a lot of future. It has such great land, such great assets, such great people. And you have a lot of people. I was with a group in Poland, and you have a lot of people in Poland, and which is a terrific country with a really great president. I happen to endorse him, and he's doing a very good job. And they were saying they love Poland, but they really want to go back. You're going to get a lot of people back when this is over. They left some, and they're all. I think they're going to come back. A big percentage are going to come back. So we're going to have a good talk, and we're going to see how it all goes. And Mr. President, would you like to say something?
Thanks so much, Mr. President. Thank you very much for this meeting, and we are very thankful, as always, to your support, American support, bipartisan support. Thanks for the invitation to this summit, and I think that I agree with you. We have a lot what to discuss and what to speak about. And of course, we are thankful for the Pearl program. And we want to share with you some details, what we want to raise during our meeting. Air defense is the priority. The second point, or maybe the first, about negotiations. I think, yes, we understand what to do. It's our estimation what to do, how to bring peace, and I hope that we will do, I'm sure that we will do everything to stop this war. Yeah, and I'm very happy that our side began to work on drone deal, and it's very good beginning, and I hope that today I will have possibility to also to discuss with you some very important details. Thank you so much.
Well, we've settled a lot of wars, and this one is the one that I thought maybe would be the easiest. But Putin's a difficult character, and this guy's a difficult character. It's not the easiest thing, and there's a lot of commitment, and there's a lot of love of the countries and everything else. But I think we've made a lot of progress in the last couple of weeks, and we'll see how it all goes. So, do you have any questions?
President Trump, sir. President Trump. With the Iran ceasefire possibly over, can we expect the resumption of full-scale hostilities?
They are behaving very badly, as they have for 47 years. And, we hit them hard last night after they launched a couple of, you don't have to know about this, you got stuff on your mind, but they launched a couple of drones and one rocket, one missile, and at ships, because they were in the strait, which they have every right to be. And so we hit them very hard last night, very, very hard. Probably hit them hard again tonight. I'll give them a little warning, we're going to hit them hard tonight. But we'll see how it all works out. No, I'm not happy with them. It's like, for instance, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the denuclearization of Iran, because that's what the war is. It's not a war. It's really the denuclearization of Iran. And we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about just that. That's because my whole thing is not about regime change. It's not about, although I think it's regime change when you knock out the first group, the second group, and now you're at the, I think that's maybe the ultimate regime change. But that's not what it's about. It's about, we don't want them to have nuclear weapons, and it's denuking or denuclearization. And I think we've made a lot of progress. And they'll get out of the room. We'll talk about it like we're here. They'll agree on everything, and then they'll go have a news conference and say we never even talked about it. They're cuckoo. There's something wrong with these people. And for 47 years, they've been the bully of the Middle East, and they're not the bully anymore. They're not the bully anymore. And all we want, it's very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That's what I'm there for.
President Trump, sir. President Trump.
If they did, they'd use it, and we're not going to let that
President Trump, sir.
Daniel?
You've made a career making deals in very challenging situations. Speaking to President Zelenskyy, speaking to President Putin, in your view, sir, what is the most pragmatic pathway forward to finding a long-term peace deal?
I just think they're going to make a deal. Look, this deal has been in the works for a long time. It's got the pluses, the minuses. They know what it is. He knows what it is better than anybody. And I just think it's sometimes, I used an analogy, and it sounds simple, but it's sort of true. You have two kids in a park, and they don't like each other, and they start fighting. Sometimes you have to let them fight, let them see that it's tough. It's tough. Fighting is tough. And he's done an amazing job. Look, he's been very effective. Now he's had the best equipment because he's had our equipment, and he's had great. But somebody has to use that equipment, and you have a lot of brave people that are using that equipment. And Russia, it's a big country, but it's a big force. Russia's always been a big fighting force, so it's. But I really believe it's ready. It's very interesting because you'd almost say it's worse than ever, and maybe it isn't. Sometimes with war, and you study war, and I've studied it so long, for years, long before I did this, sometimes it's when it gets the worst. And I don't know that it's the worst right now. It's consistently bad. They lost 25,000 people were lost, kids, young people, last month. And we had a month, 35, 2 months ago. and I would say more Russians. And but it's just they're people. They're people. And there's actually very little difference between the people. I mean, it's like the Russians and Ukrainian people, and they can get along. But it's a nasty war. Thousands and thousands, mostly soldiers, are being killed. The battlefields, I see pictures, and it's horrible. He thinks it's horrible. We all think it's horrible. And the president wants to get it done, and I believe that President Putin wants to get it done, and that should be a good combination. Thank you.
Mr. President, what is your assessment on Ukraine's strike on Russian oil refineries and military factories?
Where are you from?
Ukraine.
Phrase the question differently, please.
Ukraine delivered strikes on Russian military factories and on oil refineries, and they ran out of gas.
Marco, why don't you answer that? Because you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, I think what you're discussing is the ability of Ukraine to reach deep inside of Russia and conduct strikes. Sure. I think that's one of the dynamics that's changed in this war over the last few months, and that is that Russians are finding it more difficult to defend their own airspace. And what we hope that means is that it's going to create the space now to negotiate the end of this war.
It's an escalation, but it's also an escalation that can help lead to an end. And,
Mr. President, that Mr. Putin might be seeking for the settlement.
So where are you from?
Radio Free Europe's Ukrainian service. I'm from Ukraine.
Okay, good. Because I talked to him. I talked to him. I talked to President Zelenskyy, and I think that's all I've done. My whole life I made deals. I guess becoming president was making a deal, right? It was like a lot of little individual things. In the end, it's making a deal. And that's what I do. And I do it well, and I know when people want to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal. And I do feel that President Zelenskyy would like to get back to rebuilding his country as opposed to, having all of this death and destruction. Ukraine has tremendous potential. He understands that. We talk about that. He talks about that more than he talks about the war. To me, I think you might find that more exciting than the war. It's brutal. The other's the beauty of it. I think he'll build a great country. I think he's going to build it. We have a little stake in that country now because we have some land in that country, but we have minerals. It's among the wealthiest. It's among the best land anywhere in the world for rare earth. And we have some rare earth. I look forward to taking advantage of it at the right time.
Mr. President, Europe to make Patriot missiles in Europe.
He's one of my favorite soldiers. I see him. He's central casting. You doing okay?
Yes.
We see him at meetings. He's good. He's done a great job. Great job.
Trying to do our best.
Yeah. Great hero, actually.
Mr. President, will you allow Europe to make Patriot interceptors in Europe? Are you comfortable with licensing that technology?
About what?
Patriot interceptors to be made in Europe.
And you're talking with respect to Ukraine. Well, we're going to talk about that. Look, it's a defensive weapon, which I like, better than an offensive weapon. It's the best. So I was saying we have an aircraft carrier, which is one of the most beautiful in the world. It's one of the biggest, the Abraham Lincoln. And 2 months ago, we had 100, I told this story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. They were shot at the aircraft carrier over a period of about 1 hour. 111 missiles going to a very expensive ship, and every one of those missiles was knocked down. Pretty much most by Patriots, but by other means also, as you know. Yeah. Other less expensive means. It's even better when you do that. But out of the 111 missiles, every one of them was shot down. It didn't hit the ship, and bad things happen, right, when that happens. So think of that, over a period of 1 hour, these missiles are coming at you, and every one of them shot down. So I think one of the things we're going to be talking about is, as you know, the companies, we have great power over the companies. Those companies that make the Patriot and make all of the great stuff, the Tomahawks, all of the great stuff. We have the best stuff. Many things. The Patriot's great, but we have many, many great things. You see that with Venezuela. You see it with Iran. Look, Iran has been wiped out. Iran, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, everything's gone. But one of the things I think we're going to be talking about today, a little birdie told me this, about the fact that we'll give them the right to make patriots. We'll show them how to do it. It's very complex, actually, but it's you'll figure out the complexity quickly. And we're talking about that, and the company that makes them, which is building now 4 plants, all of our companies will be able to do this in 2 to 3 months. If you order a Patriot, now you have to wait a long time for them. Same thing with Tomahawks. We have a lot of certain equipment, but with they call it the elite equipment, and you don't need elite equipment necessarily for a war. But so one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I say make them yourself. We haven't informed the company of that yet, but that'll work out all right. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. But they'll be able to do it. You'll be able to figure that out. Most countries couldn't do that. No. If I said that to most countries, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But this is a very ingenious group, and what I like about that, it's a defensive situation as opposed to an offensive. But I think one of the things you might want to be talking about is that. That's what I heard. Little birdie told me that.
On Iran, can you clarify, does the end of the ceasefire mean that we are back to a full-scale military conflict?
Look, they violate the agreement every day. They lie, they cheat, they kill people. They've been killing people for 47 years. They knocked out the SS Cole. We lost, 200 people more. That was a long time ago. For 47 years, no president did anything about that. Well, Obama actually gave them vast amounts of money. You'd like this. He gave them a plane load of money, $1.7 billion in green cash. They loaded up a Boeing 757. Remember the old 750? It was a beautiful plane loaded up with cash. They took all the seats out, and they took all of the cash from Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. banks. They had no money. They took every ounce of cash, put it in, flew it to Iran, and gave them the money. I wonder what these guys thought of when the door opened and cash fell out of this big plane, beautiful plane. And then on top of that, they gave them billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, they gave it to the wrong country, frankly. You want to know the truth. And it began. That was pretty much the Obama deal. That was one of the worst tragedies that happened. That's what happened in the Middle East. That deal set back that whole situation. They went with, frankly, they picked the wrong country. They picked the wrong country. POC. What a terrible deal. I call it the Obama nuclear waste deal, because what he did with that deal is he caused tremendous hardship in the Middle East. It was a terrible, terrible thing to do. And we've been just the opposite. Our deal is a wall to a nuclear weapon. His deal was a road to a nuclear weapon. They'll never build a nuclear weapon under our deal, but I don't know if we're going to have a deal. We may just do it without a deal, because you know what? It's easier. Because these people, they lie and they cheat, and you have an agreement, and they'll go outside. For instance, they agreed, well, we'll never have a nuclear weapon. They agreed. Then they go outside, they have a news conference, or they leak that we never discussed the subject. Now, who would believe we never discussed the subject? Because for me, that's 99.9% of what we're doing. It's denuclearization of Iran, okay? So when you ask, our guys can continue. You know, Steve is great, and Jared, and all the guys. They know him very well. Yeah, actually, they're working on your stuff, too. I wonder which. I picked 2 beauties. You know what? We settled 8 wars. I got a couple of beauties here. But Steve's great, and Jared's great. You know, they're the right guys. And we'll see what happens. But I will say this. Iran, they've misbehaved for 47 years. They've killed our soldiers, they've killed our people, and they've killed a lot of people all over the Middle East and elsewhere. And the roadside bomb was their preferred, the preferred weapon was by Soleimani, the roadside bomb, where it would explode under a truck. We actually built trucks with floors, steel this thick. And then all they did was they made bigger bombs. And we have young guys around, not walking around because they have no legs, but their legs were blown off, their arms were blown off, their face was blown off, and they live because of modern medicine. You can do anything, but they're living like in hell. Their whole life changed because of Iran. And that was 96% of the people that used that, they were made in Iran. And so we have a score to settle too.
Mr. President, you say that President Putin is ready to finish this war. What if he doesn't? Are you ready to put pressure on Russia? Are you ready to put more sanctions? Well, we have a lot of pressure.
We have a lot of pressure on President Putin. I don't think he likes what's going on. I don't think he's thrilled with what's happening. There's a lot of pressure on President Putin to get it done. I think there's pressure on everybody to get that one done. A lot of pressure.
Mr. President, what's your security guarantee for Ukraine?
The guarantee?
Yeah, security guarantee for Ukraine.
The security guarantee you're talking about? I mean, not that we want to do it. We'll do it to save lives. Look, Ukraine's very far away. We have an ocean separating us. What I'm doing is I'm trying to save lives. A lot of lives are being lost. I also think that it's a country with great potential. I think if this kind of brain power can go toward rebuilding the country instead of fighting a war, I think that country is going to do fantastically well. And likewise, Russia, look, they're devoting a lot of energy. Do you have a question for President Putin, please? Do you have a question for President Putin? Not Zelenskyy. Yeah, what would you like to ask him? Because I'm going to ask him that question.
I have a question. Last year you called Russia a paper tiger, referring that they're not doing that.
Who did I call?
I'm from Telegraph UA, Ukrainian media.
No, give us a question, not for Zelenskyy. Give us a question for Putin. Because I'm speaking to him today.
Yeah.
Why is it a good, hard question?
When will he end this war?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever asked him that question. I'm going to ask him that question.
Mr. President, what's the status of a trade deal between the U.S. and Ukraine? What's the status?
By the way, I will tell you, though, he's going to tell you that he wants it ended as soon as he can end it. He wants it ended. He wants to end it soon. And I ask him, and we talk. I talk to him a lot. I talk to him a little bit less, but the relationship is very good. But I talk to President Putin a lot. He wants to end the war.
Mr. President,
a lot of people don't believe that.
Doesn't he want the status of a trade deal between Ukraine? What are President Putin's conditions for ending the war? Do you know what?
Well, they were certain conditions that were a little bit different. I think they're changing. I think they're probably getting a little bit better toward some of the things that you'd like. It's been tougher in Russia. It's been a lot tougher than it was supposed to be. I mean, in all fairness, this was supposed to be this is a war that would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. You'd have a full country, I mean, just a shame that it happened. But no, this is something that I think Zelenskyy wants to do and Putin wants to do. They want to get it done. Ask the president that question. Ask him.
Пане президенте, ви знаєте, на яких зараз умовах Володимир Путін готовий завершувати війну в Україні? Чи ж вони змінилися?
No, I don't know I don't know what conditions Putin now wants for this peace. So I think that they are changing in any way, because at the very beginning of full-scale war, he was stronger, and now I think he is losing initiative on the battlefield. I think his army, but that's why I think that because of technologies, because it's not the question now of number of people. People, our heroic people, are very important. But now it's not the question of only number of people. First of all, people and technologies. People with technologies. Now I think that we have better steps, technological steps further than Russia, maybe quicker, because they you know that they produce a lot of different things which are tough, strong against us, but we are quicker. And that's why I think that now initiative moved to our hands, not totally, but moved. We are trying to move this war to the sky from the battlefield. That's why we now began to control the battlefield. This is very important. It's difficult when you have less people to move them back, but we found another way how to do it, to cut their logistic for their army. It's about weapon, petrol, diesel, without massive human losses. That is the difference between us, by the way. Russia is,
he's got a lot of support. I just left a room with, where they have, mostly European, you have Canada, but mostly European countries. And they have great support for Ukraine. And, really great support. One of the things, you talk about questions for Putin, but one of the things that I talked to him about was, where would you want to meet? And he said, ideally in Moscow. I said, you're not going to meet in Moscow. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. But he'll meet, and Zelensky's going to meet, and something's going to happen that's going to be positive. And I hope it's going to happen soon, because they have to, number one, lives, but number two, building your country, because it's got a tremendous future, in my opinion. Yeah.
Where would it be held, and when would that happen?
I don't know. Mr. President Putin said, I would love to meet in Moscow. And I said, I don't think, I have to put myself in his position. I don't know that he'd go to Moscow. Maybe he would. Would you go to Moscow?
It's difficult. There are a lot of Ukrainian drones there. That's right. It's dangerous.
He doesn't want to get hit by a drone.
Europe?
No, it's hard. It's hard to go to Moscow.
Mr. President, how to ensure that Ukraine will not be attacked again by Russia?
What about?
How to make sure that Ukraine will not be attacked by Russia again?
Look, you mean in the future?
Yes.
You mean after there's an agreement? Well, we're going to work on a security guarantee and Russia respects us a lot. And we're going to work on some kind of a security. If we can make the right deal, we'll help Europe. Europe is going to be watching it. But we're going to be helping them, and we'll work on some kind of a security package that will make sure. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that if we make a deal, Russia is going to be very happy, and they're going to get on with other things. They have, by the way, as a country, too, they have tremendous potential. They have tremendous land, valuable land that they can do things with, and they have tremendous potential. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see that question is, they're going to attack again. I don't see it at all. I think they've had it. This has been going on for almost 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? It's a tribute because it's a bigger country, strong country, and it's an amazing tribute. Anything else?
With the Patriot missiles, President Zelenskyy has said that Ukraine needs Patriot missiles now. Over 50 Ukrainians have died in recent airstrikes just in the last few days. So in addition to these production licenses, which will take time, would you consider providing any to Ukraine immediately?
We have Patriots, but we don't have that many. We need them for ourselves too, Some, but I think they can produce them pretty quickly. Once we explain it, we'll bring the company here. They'll work with the company. They have a great ability to produce weapons, pretty complex weapons.
Will you go to Ukraine?
President, do you have any deadline?
Will you go to Ukraine?
I would, yeah.
Do you have any deadline when you want to reach
I'd rather have the war be over.
When will we happen? Do you have any deadline?
I'm not sure Secret Service would be thrilled.
Are you
Putin doesn't stop war.
I think the people are incredible. And, like Kiev, it would be nice to get it before any more damage is done, to be honest. It's such a beautiful city, right? And, I would go to Ukraine at the right time.
Do you have any deadline when you want to reach a deal between Ukraine and Russia? Do you have any deadline in that?
regard?
No, I don't have a deadline. You can't have a deadline. It's it's too much going on. But I think you're going to have a deal. I think I've been very good. We had certain deals like Azerbaijan and some of the deals that we made, and they've been going on for 32 years. And they said it's an impossible thing to get them solved. Eight different deals. Even in the Congo, it was. Think of it. You have the Congo and Rwanda. That was 14 million people dead. A lot of them with machetes. It's a horror. We got that one solved, or it flares up every once in a while, I must say. But we got deals done that weren't doable. But if you look at India and Pakistan, they were at it. We get that. We get them done, and when we get them done, I find that people are not anxious to go back into it. I think we'll have you once mentioned the word security guarantee in the Oval Office. So. Yep. And I think they're going to need some kind of a security guarantee, but we're going to work with them. That's important. I think he thinks that's a very important thing.
The security guarantees are very important.
And they'll live by it.
Partially, the President said about Patriots and licenses. The Patriot system is the best, in the world for today. The best anti-ballistic system. So we used a lot of...
That's the best.
Yeah, the best one. And checked everything during the war. So this is true. So with all respect to other partners, we are thankful for all the systems.
Well, they had different systems in Venezuela. Yeah. So Venezuela had systems that didn't work. We didn't have one plane shot down. We didn't have one. We had one helicopter operator who was incredible. He landed it perfectly, and his leg was almost blown off. And we gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor because very few people could have landed that. You land them with your feet, really, more than anything else. And he landed it. He was really in bad shape. And at the State of the Union, we gave him. He was a handsome guy, big handsome guy, but we gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor at the State of the Union. So, look. He wants to get it done, and we're going to get it done.
What's the status on a drone deal between Ukraine and the U.S.?
In what sense?
What's the status of a drone deal between Ukraine and the U.S.?
Well, we would buy their drones, and we make drones. We make great drones, but they have an ability to make a lot of them, which is, right, Marco, amazing that in a war situation, they make them. They make them in basements. They make them wherever the hell you have a little shelter, even if you don't have shelter, I suspect, right? It's an amazing ability. Very few. Well, that's why I say with the Patriots, they would be able to do it. Most countries would not be able. They don't have the talent. You have very talented people. So, I think we're going to make that deal. If we made that deal, we'd have great protection. I love the protection. Think if you had a lot of Patriots, you'd never be hit. As an example, in Kiev, where they get hit with missiles, those missiles, like what I said about the Abraham Lincoln, the missiles would be shot down. Yeah. So, and I think you'd start making them pretty quickly. Right? You like the idea?
No, it's a great idea.
I think everybody likes that one.
As part of security guarantees, are you ready to close the skies in case Russia attacks again?
Close what?
To close the skies over Ukraine in case Russia.
It's been
as a part of security guarantees, are you ready to impose the no-fly?
If it's necessary, yeah. I mean, look, I tell you, when we have a deal, we're going to have a deal. Security guarantee or no security guarantee. If we have a deal, we're going to have a deal. We're not going to have to worry about what you're saying. We're going to have a deal. I think if we come to a solution, which I think we will, we're going to have a deal. Now, we want to make sure the deal sticks. Some people don't think it will. I think it will. I'm sure it will. I'm not sure it will with Iran. If we make a deal with Iran, I'm not sure that will stick.
May I ask you, what does your...
Because I found them to be very dishonorable people. Yeah.
Are you going to reimpose the naval blockade?
I don't find that with him. And I mean, I don't want to upset him, but everything I've done with President Putin has been okay. It's been good. He's going to say, oh, but I would expect you to say that, but that's good. I don't think anything's going to be broken, and we're going to do a security guarantee in case it is. But with Iran, 47 years, this should have been done by another president a long time ago, or somebody else, another country. But they got stronger and stronger, and now they're weak.
Are you going to reimpose the naval blockade on Iranian ports?
We knocked out 159 ships in 1 week. That's good even for you, right? 159. Their entire navy is at the bottom of the sea. And now they have little boats, little tiny boats that go around. And we knocked about 28 of them out last night with the same weapon we use for the drug people. You know, drugs are down, by the way. Drugs by sea are down 97%, meaning nobody wants to get into those boats and take drugs into it. They're down 97%. And we're using the same thing for the mine boats. You know, they like to drop mines in. And we hit a lot of them last night, like 28. We knocked out 28 boats last night, little ones. That's all they have is little ones.
Are you going to try to take out more tonight?
Will we go tonight? You know, normally I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't tell you, but you know what? There's not a thing they can do about it. So the answer is probably.
President Trump.
Terrible military strategy. He just said he's going tonight. Yeah, they deserve it.
President Trump, what is the effectiveness of last night's attack? What message does that send to what's left of the Iranian
Which attack are you talking about?
The attack that you guys had on Iran last night. The strikes last night?
Oh, I think it has a tremendous impact. Well, first of all, we took out additional, you know, they were trying to rebuild their radar, and they had about 60% built. Now they have to start all over again. Look, we're not attacking at the highest level. The highest level are the bridges, which we can knock down. I would say in one day we knocked down every single bridge in Iran. There's not a thing they can do about it. Their electric manufacturing facilities, right? Their electric plants where they make their electricity there. We will, if we have to, we'll take them out. I don't want to do that, but if we have to, we'll take them out. They have desalinization plants. We'll take them out if we have to. I hate to do that. That's probably the one I would like not to do least. We attacked Cargill Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Cargill Island. You know, we may take over Cargill Island. There's not a thing they can do about it. But I said, don't hit the pipes. Just hit everything else. And they hit it. They may hit it again tonight. So, you know, as per your question, normally I'm not that way, but they really deserve it because they're saying they want to make a deal, but they don't. You know, they asked for a timeout. They wanted to go to the funeral of Khomeini, and I said, give it to them. And they start shooting missiles. I mean, it was the craziest thing. Now, we did kill him, you know, so I guess you have to look at it that way, but the funeral took place. And they wanted to have a period of time. And they also asked that we not kill them. And we said, we're not going to kill you. They were worried we'd kill them during the funeral. I mean, if you can believe it. What a crazy... Did you ever think I'd be doing this for a living? Marco? Did anybody ever think I'm doing... Maybe Pete, but this wasn't supposed to be for me. Pete loved this stuff from day one. But they said to us, please don't kill us during the funeral. I said, I won't. And we didn't do anything. In fact, we made it safe for them, actually. And what happens? They try and knock out two ships, a Saudi and I guess Kuwait, right? Kuwaiti? Oh, no, Qatari. In addition, really three.
Three, yes, sir.
So you had three of them. And they're just, I don't know. I just don't know with them. A lot of people say they're very dishonorable people. And they can't keep a deal, so we'll see. Now, as to whether or not Steve Witkoff, Jared, and JD and everybody working on that will talk, I guess they could talk, but I'm not seeing it with them, with the people. My whole life is deals, I don't see it. I don't see it with them. And there may be a big attack, and it'll knock out a lot of stuff. We don't knock out nothing. We knock out a lot. Pete, do you want to tell them about last night?
Yes, sir. Last night, as you said, a lot of small craft that they were trying to harass shipping with, so that was a big part of what we targeted. Underground facilities where they were storing drones or missiles, coastal defense sites, radar sites, surveillance sites, anything used to harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So anything they thought they had rebuilt or capability they were using was a target last night. And tonight, if we need to, on your order, Mr. President, we will hit even more and even deeper, because that's the consequence.
And we may put down the blockade. We may put it back, the blockade. And it'll only be a blockade for Iran. Anybody else can have whatever they want. Now, of course, they'll drop some mines if they can, if they can do it. But it's hard because we're taking out those little boats now with the same weapon we used to take out the drug lords and the boats coming in by sea. Think of it, 97%. For years, we had fentanyl and all the other drugs coming in from different countries, including Venezuela. And it was, they'd arrest them, they'd bring them to a court, they'd be released, and they'd be back on another boat the next. 97%. What was done in the past had no impact. 97% drugs down coming in by sea. And now we're going to start doing it by land. The land is easy when we had to do sea first. And nobody, I think the 3% of the people that still do that, I think they're the bravest people in the world. We should probably give them a medal for bravery. Because and we're using the same exact missile to take out the mine drop. They call them mine droppers. But we have minesweepers, and one of the things that came up today is that European nations, the NATO group, they're sending minesweepers. We don't need them now. We have pretty much the mines that cleared up, but they'll probably drop some more. They're evil people. They're sick people. They're mentally disturbed people, and it should have been done 47 years ago. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
This way, please.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Keep moving. Thank you.
Global instability on display right there. President Trump at the NATO summit in Turkey, about to meet with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy, with the war between Ukraine and Russia now nearly 4.5 years old. Mr. Trump saying the two leaders have developed a good relationship after that disastrous, tense meeting in the Oval Office last year. Also today, the president just warned that American forces will hit Iran hard again tonight after declaring earlier the Iran ceasefire is now over. Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, who is traveling with the president. She joins us now live from Turkey. Monica, a lot to get to. Let's get with the breaking news here, because the focus of this NATO summit is supposed to be the war between Russia and Ukraine, but now Iran seems to have eclipsed that. Where do things stand with Iran? What's the president saying about that?
Well, earlier today, Joe, the president was asked whether he considered the fragile ceasefire over, essentially, and he said that, in his opinion, it was. And then when he was asked more questions in this meeting, he did preview that there was going to be additional military action that could be expected tonight against Iran in response to what the U.S. says is the fact that Iran is targeting commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, carrying who they say are innocent civilians who shouldn't be targeted. So he had even his defense secretary, his secretary of state there, try to explain the rationale for this kind of strategy right now, when we should just point out and keep reminding people that we are here in Turkey, which neighbors Iran. We are in the region as all of this is unfolding, and the president is making these decisions that could lead to an escalation of sorts, saying that he has no choice because he is criticizing the Iranian negotiators that just about a month ago he had called very rational people, very smart people, people that he enjoyed dealing with, saying that it was possible when he wanted to say that there had been progress toward a potential peace deal. Now, today, he is calling those same people involved on the Iranian side as unstable. In the words of the president, he said they were even cuckoo, that he couldn't necessarily believe that there would be an eventual final deal or framework here. And he is saying essentially that he's going to continue whether there is a peace process or not, whether there is going to be a path to potential future negotiations or not. He did leave the door open to that resuming, but he seemed to imply that perhaps that wasn't going to be the way that he would, quote, denuclearize Iran, saying that he could do that by going forward with a military strategy and, again, potentially resuming major combat military operations, though he did not confirm that. And when he was even asked specifically whether there was going to be more action tonight, he said, well, I probably shouldn't be telling this to a group of reporters, but it is likely that you can expect that. And then, of course, we have seen both Iran and the U.S. agree on one thing, which is that this exchange of fire ceasefire, Joe, is an absolute violation of the ceasefire. That's how both sides see it. So where this goes from here now is a major open question.
Yeah, and moments ago, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who is there in Turkey, offering some details on the strikes that just happened, saying that the main thing was targeting anything that's been used to harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. And I guess looking forward here, Monica, one of the key questions, is there anything even resembling negotiations between the U.S. and Iran using some sort of third party that's even on the calendar in the future moving forward?
Well, certainly, I think regional allies here are all wondering the same thing, given their efforts when you talk about Pakistan and Qatar, certainly, and how involved they have been as intermediaries. What's notable also, Joe, is that the 60-day memorandum of understanding, which was inked about 3 weeks ago, would have kind of put this into mid-August. And so now the question is, could this have to restart all over again? We did see one of the pieces of that initial framework start to fall apart, which was that waiver that was issued to Iran initially to be able to restart the process of selling its own oil, which would have been a huge economic point for Iran. That was revoked yesterday by the U.S. Treasury Department, in the words of Secretary Bessent, because Iran was not holding up their end of the agreement of the MOU. So they said that that is something that they were going to be taking away. So again, we're starting to basically see the elements of that initial framework fall apart in real time as we're seeing an escalation in the military action. And so when we talk about when the next time these groups could come face to face to continue discussions, that seems to be a little bit of a ways off. And remember, Joe, that it was supposed to be Vice President Vance who was supposed to be leading these negotiations from the U.S. side of things. He is traveling today, and we haven't heard from him yet on whether he has had any back-channel diplomatic discussions. Joe.
Monica, we know also a lot of questions, obviously, about Ukraine. President Trump has been promising a deal between Russia and Ukraine since he took office, but we just heard him say he thought it'd be easy. Then he also called Putin and Zelenskyy difficult characters. So what can we expect from this meeting between President Trump and President Zelenskyy today?
And I picked up on what you talked about in the introduction, which is the president noting how far the relationship has come, that they've come a long way since the Oval Office, where really President Trump and Vice President Vance berated and belittled President Zelenskyy, calling him ungrateful and really kind of dressing him down there in that meeting. There have been other meetings, of course, plenty of them since then, but that is an interesting arc to their relationship, certainly. But there was a really big piece of news from the president off the top there when it comes to the war in Ukraine, which is he announced that basically he's going to allow or help facilitate Ukraine being able to produce its own Patriot interceptor missiles. And the reason that that is notable is that's something that President Zelenskyy has been asking for. He wants the actual Patriots themselves from the U.S. The president said that the U.S. needs them for themselves and can't necessarily give him those ones, but that he will be talking to the company that makes them in order to grant the license for production so that Ukraine can have their own. The question on that, of course, Joe, is the timing of it. How long would that take when the needs on the battlefield are fairly urgent, which President Zelenskyy stressed here today? So the president continues to say he's going to be talking to President Putin, that he's going to see if there is a possibility for some kind of momentum for a conclusion to this war. But we have heard that many, many, many different times, though perhaps with a little bit of the movement here, there could be something that comes from that. But there didn't seem to be anything more concrete beyond that news on the Patriot missiles. And certainly President Zelenskyy is asking for a lot more support, not just from the U.S., but from some of these European allies. And certainly he is getting that, at least vocally. We'll see what that actually translates to. And finally, Joe, the president was even asked if he would consider going to Ukraine. He noted, of course, how dangerous that might be, how difficult that might be. But he said one day when the conditions are right, if it's possible, that he would like to go there and visit in person.
Monica, speaking of going places, there was sort of this fascinating exchange with the president talking about, at some point Ukraine and Russia would have to be in the same room to reach any sort of deal, where that might happen. And President Trump says he's been telling President Putin it's not going to happen in Moscow. That was a fascinating exchange there because he even got Zelenskyy to sort of weigh in on the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and Zelenskyy noted right off the top that that's a place that may not be very safe for him to go, given the drones, given the reach, given what could happen there, for all of the reasons security-wise that the three leaders could be in the same place. Now, remember that all the way back in August when the president traveled to Alaska to meet with President Putin, there was this hope of a trilateral summit where the three were potentially going to be together. That has never materialized, and we'll see. That may still be a ways off. Joe.
All right. Monica Alba, appreciate your reporting there from Turkey. Again, President Trump meeting with President Zelenskyy right now to talk about the war between Russia and Ukraine, and a lot of developments happening over the last few hours between the U.S. and Iran. Be sure to stay with us right here on NBC News Now. We're going to be bringing you the very latest from overseas throughout the day. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.